Hey, thanks for joining the Fanboy Cantina. We are back again talking about WandaVision, this time episode 6. A what is it? What do we call it? An all-new Halloween Spooktacular. How are you doing, Mr. C?
I am spooktacularly good. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. I am enjoying the series. It gets better and better as the episodes roll on. It is actually, I understand, the number one streaming show right now, globally speaking. So people are getting on board with the show. I'm more invested in it than I was in episodes 1 and 2. So I'm digging it.
I'm just as invested as I had been. And again, I understand without knowing the details that these are different metrics than the traditional Nielsen rating system and such. But hey, if I'm not surprised because this is one fun ride to be in on.
Definitely, definitely. I think it was Parrot Media was the source. So very quickly, let's just get non-spoilery reactions out of the way. Thoughts and reactions to the episode and what we had this week.
Tying into the sitcom genre, again, not listed on the Disney Plus, whatever it is, card screen. Doesn't say sitcom there, but boy, oh boy, having Uncle Petey around sure led to a lot of hijinks and fun.
Yeah, yeah. I did not know what we were going to get in this episode, whether all of the events of episode 5 were going to continue into episode 6. I enjoyed it. This is the right pace for me, that blend between the sitcom elements and reality, or whatever we think is reality. So I much prefer this, and the pace is picking up, and it just gets me more excited. Every episode ends up being like a cliffhanger now, so I'm in. Okay, so just as a format change, in the past we've had the spoiler alert thing in the bottom. Let's be honest, the whole show is a spoiler discussion. It's in the title, and if you're here and you've probably already seen the episode, or hopefully you've already seen the episode, so let's just get out of the way that we're it's going to be all spoiler all the time from here on out. So the episode opens up with the Malcolm in the middle. Oh crap, that's not right. Malcolm in the middle. I'll change that. But with the Malcolm in the middle intro sequence, I never really watched the show, to be honest with you, but I knew what it was about. You've got the characters talking straight into the screen, straight into the camera. I thought we were going to get 90s. Actually, I thought this was kind of a leap, like a decade or two ahead of where we were going to be in this episode. But I dig the format, and I really dig how they have adapted the sitcom feel and how they shoot the whole thing with each one of these episodes.
I agree. Having the kids break the fourth wall in the intro was very Malcolm in the middle. Whether we will, if this being episode 6, whether episode 7 will jump backwards then and pick up some more 90s sitcom frame of reference. Time will tell. We'll have to see, but I was definitely on board with it. I'll even say, as a nuance, as Wanda was in the bathroom with her hair and the curlers, and the face she made as the old boys is the disappointed mom face. That definitely had shades of the Malcolm in the Middle mom, as Jane Kasmerick would have portrayed in the show. If I could just jump a touch earlier in the recap, as there have been some adjustments in the recap. Now the recap drew in footage from Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, to see that Quicksilver character injured with 3 bloodstains onto his jersey, onto his shirt. So that will connect some dots from the recap into what comes later on in this current episode 6.
That's right. That's right. And in that episode, in that beginning sequence of this moment, after the intro bit, Uncle P is passed out on the sofa, And the kids, Billy and Tommy, joke, maybe he's a vampire. And then there's the whole little horror thing that Uncle P does. Kind of, I mean, I like that they have managed to shove in all of the sitcom tropes, right? The special holiday special. In this case, where it's not the holiday special, it's the Halloween special, it's spot on to use it here for WandaVision. And there's a lot of horror moments that happen throughout this one.
The hijinks between the uncle and the kids is great fun. Like, again, I'm enjoying it on the actual sitcom level. Hypothetically, had there been no layering and multiple levels of reveal in the show, I'd still be watching just to see some kind of iteration of the comic book character of Quicksilver play around with his nephews, with Billy and Tommy. I'd be on board. I'd say also his boxers, his sleeping gear, and his shirt, were not very color coordinated unto themselves, but I would say they were matching as derivatives of his earliest comic costume, which was primarily green with the Quicksilver with the silvery, or it was colored white lightning bolt streak across him, and his later costuming played more off of a gray and bluish tone. So even in what he's wearing when we first see him sleeping on the couch in this episode, I would say were subtle nods to his different comic costumes over time.
Wow, I did not pick up on that at all. That and again, that is your wheelhouse more than mine. And that brings us to the next piece, I think nicely, which is Old Red Riding Hood and Booger.
As long as we're on costumes, let's talk about costumes a little bit.
Yeah, so we have Wanda come down as a Sokovian fortune teller, and Vision is a Mexican wrestling character of some kind. Wow, a great way to bring in the characters in their more traditionally known costumes and outfits.
And just even the interplay there when the kids are first like, "Oh, Mom, that's an awesome costume," whichever way they said it exactly. And then Uncle Petey's like, "It's lame," and then the kids, "Oh no, okay, it's lame." It's so fitting for that age, because then the kids can still find their parents kind of cool, but for the subtle influence to come around, and then kids find their parents not so cool. Maybe we don't need to do a deep dive on that. It might hit a little too close to home in certain situations, right. But the dynamic exists.
I wondered if it was actually Pietro or whoever actually is Pietro showing influence over the kids. It may be, you're right. You may be right. It may be just that moment, that time in life where your parents are no longer cool. Or is it that Pietro is actually trying to influence Billy and Tommy? Do not know. And so then in this moment, in this sequence between Wanda and Vision, they are talking about, or Vision is talking about going on the neighborhood watch. And Wanda's reaction is, "Well, that's not what you're supposed to." And what is that? What? And so then Vision leaves and goes off and has his own individual adventure. But then that brings us to, I don't have a banner for this, but this. What the heck was this?
Right? Is it just clowning? Is it? I mean, they left it all, and then bringing, as the show has now established the pattern, it takes this ambiguous event and then draws it back towards the sitcom tone of things. But yeah, that's definitely a very, very interesting face. And if I can tie that, so not that we can do the frame by frame review here.
Yeah.
Just before that, so Vision walks out the door.
Oh, yeah.
And she locks the door. Now, I can't say did she lock or not lock the door in the previous episodes. I'm going to say she didn't. I mean, I could be wrong, but it was a subtle yet distinct. She put her face close to the door and turned the lock. So if she's in control of everything, why does she need to lock the door. I mean, locking the door would fit a sitcom of a Malcolm in the Middle era, but maybe she's also trying to keep out unexpected elements. Then she turns around and then she's got her brother, not her brother, but her brother's shock face, or however we want to call his.
Yeah. No, that's a good. That I did not pick up on that. It was intentionally here to get that jump scare, right? The writers knew that we got the jump scare with Dead Vision a couple of episodes back, and the shocking reaction there. You get the pulse of the music, right, and then the thing. That it was very shocking, and I think there were many pieces throughout this episode where Wanda doesn't believe Pietro is Pietro because she's testing him repeatedly. And also, Pietro is not acting like the brother or Quicksilver in either of the universes, either the MCU or the Fox X-Men universe.
I would have to revisit both the Marvel, the MCU, Quicksilver, and I'd have to visit the Fox, at the time, the Fox universe Quicksilver, to see how similar or how different, to be well informed about it. But he's definitely, just off general memory, he's a whole other thing now. He's not exactly Fox's Quicksilver. He's not the exact same Quicksilver that was with the Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart and the other X-Men actors, and for sure he's not the same Quicksilver to interact with Hawkeye and the other Avengers.
No, definitely not. And I think then that can bring us to the introduction. We didn't know that Quicksilver was going to appear in WandaVision, so that was a surprise. But we did know that we were going to see Wanda and Vision in their old school uniforms or the old school costumes. So how cool was this to see the two? We got Speed and Quicksilver together in one shot and sharing the same costume.
I've seen some where it was stated that they were like a lower end of a chain store bought Halloween costume, so yet it's also that a tribute to the classic vintage costume. There you go, the two generations of speedsters. Is Quicksilver's hair traditionally had two curly cues toward the front, so this is a hyper rendition or a well exaggerated expression of that. Again, just at the sitcom level or just at the comedic level, I'm completely on board with it. And then again, the total hijinks. Okay, like as of the previous episode, it wouldn't have been at all okay with Wanda to go do the water balloon and shaving cream Halloween pranks. But right here comes goofy, disruptor, fun uncle who's going to get the kids doing pranks, and that was brought us into a really nice sequence of all the Halloween hijinks that they ran around town doing.
Yep. Yeah. I digged it. I did not expect it, and was really happy to see this part. That brings us, I think, I don't have an image for this, but there's a confrontation that happens back at the Sword base, the Sword headquarters, and their base of operations. There's the really abrasive exchange between the director Hayward and the group, Darcy, Agent Wu, and Monica. Wow. And it gets really heated and elevated to the point where they are removed from the base. And we get a little bit more. The two things the two moments that have jumped out for me in this is when we saw the impact of the blip, and seeing what life is like once they all return. But then here, just the reference to, you don't know how it was while we were trying to keep the lights on, while all of you disappeared, and Director Hayward takes a really awful swipe of, thank goodness you weren't here when your mother died. Wow.
Talk about escalation. And again, from the previous episode, what started out as a very subtle but distinct reading of different tones or different intentions, which then ramped up toward the end of that episode, and it continued right up that exact same ramp and escalated here. I'll say this now, not in power level, but in tone, in tonality, in decision, in choice. We're here within this story because Wanda has created this hex or this reality. Wanda couldn't let it go. She's having a very tough time letting it go of all the trauma that's happened to her, including the loss of her husband, of Vision. Now, so as a tonal counterpoint, as opposing pieces on the chessboard, this director guy, he can't let it go either. He just had all of his regiment's guns turned upon him, but that's not enough to cause him to back off. He's doubling down. He's as is Wanda, steadfast to execute her will. He is the counterpoint. He is equally invested in being that nemesis or that contrarian figure to Wanda, and so everybody's all in on the opposition, and the stage continues to be set for the battle to unfold.
Yeah, there was a quote that Monica said that made me wonder if it was seeding something. We have no, or I'm paraphrasing. We have no idea what is happening in there or what will happen out here if Wanda dies.
One would think that's logical truth.
Oh, sure.
And why wouldn't logic and truth fit into the equation? Hey, there are unknowns. So if we proceed further down the road of the unknowns, it will remain unknown what the consequence, what the outcome will be.
Yeah. In the writing, which seems to be getting better for me, at least as it goes on, where it's getting into our heads as viewers. At certain points, I think that it is throwing us off and actually acknowledging what we may be thinking and saying, nah, that ain't it. But in other cases, it may be things like this that are foreshadowing what may happen in the final 3 episodes. What if Wanda dies? And how this episode ends too. Just the impact of Wanda. Actually, that reminds me of something that happened earlier where there's an exchange between Wanda and Pietro, and Pietro says, well, you probably don't remember that because of the traumatic times. It's that trick-or-treating in Sokovia moment. Yeah, you probably just don't remember that we got typhus. And I think when he says that it could be that, well, you went through a lot of trauma, that is signaling to us is not that Wanda, it's not because Wanda went through trauma that we're in this. It's something else, actually. I don't think that's the case.
Speaking of unknown, so what does he know? What doesn't he know? That has yet to be established. At one point in the episode, he talks about things being fuzzy. Yeah, but he definitely knows. The audience doesn't know everything that he knows. So history-wise and time and space-wise, it's very interesting. And it just as pure sitcom comedy, the flashback to the younger Wanda and the younger Pietro in Halloween costumes in Sokovia, and the elderly woman gives them the fish and says for sharing or divided. For me, that gave me a lot of memories of like when you were little, like, here's a $5 bill, split it between you and your brother. Well, I don't have it. 50 to make change for the $5 bill to split it, but then it was a fish. So that was super funny for me.
Yeah. So that brings us now to the trick or treat scene. I'll drop the sassy best friend banner. Here we get Speed and Wiccan together in their comic book versions. Cool to see this moment of the two together. Did not expect them to be even appearing in the show, but as it evolves, loved this moment. And I know for you, Halloween individually, Mr. C, is a fun holiday. So you must have dug this whole sequence.
Like, it's just so, the kids in the costumes, I'm all in on it. The grown people in the costumes, I'm all in on it. The whole backdrop, the whole setting of here's some kind of Halloween customs and party for this small town of Westview. It's just well shot. It's well orchestrated. It's well done. I was all on board with it.
Yep. No, definitely. And I thought this was interesting. At multiple times in this episode, we hear the words hell, demon spawn in this moment. Nightmare, I think it's said at least twice in the show. It's said by the director early on in the beginning, and Quicksilver says it actually towards the end, giving kids nightmares. I think that's interesting, and it's probably not a subtle note to us that there is something very sinister and evil. Certainly, the whole environment is disturbing, zombie-like, awful, but I think it may signal who is the big bad. Thoughts and reactions to that?
Well, here I was just enjoying it at the sitcom level for how well done it is, but yeah, then let's jump into that other layer. So again, this is some kind of setup for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and again, talking about there's plenty of things we don't know about that, but for the character, the Marvel Comics character known as Nightmare, was definitely a Doctor Strange nemesis, and if these children, depending on who was writing them in the comic history at whichever point in time, were shards or fragments or pieces of a demon spawn, or they were demon spawn, that they weren't actually Wanda's kids, but if they had come from the Marvel character of Mephisto, then it's at least referencing or hinting at the possibility. And again, in the MCU, in the cinematic universe, there are things that stay true as they were depicted in the comics, and things that are diversion and new iterations. So at least those ideas are on the table and they're being played with, and again, the reveals will be revealed at the right time. That the sleight of hand will turn over and within episode 7, 8, 9, or in the Doctor Strange movie. But they're definitely there's so many different trails of breadcrumbs here, but this specific trail of breadcrumbs, or this specific segment of crumbs, is setting up for the possibility of the character Nightmare, or there's some demonistic madness going on within this verse of a multiverse.
Yeah, no, definitely. Could be Mephisto, could be Nightmare, could be some other big bad. We don't fully know. After the sequence during that sequence with the trick or treat, you can see the fraying of the sitcom element, where I think the character is Hugh, right? The meeting of the guy dressed as Frankenstein, and they're talking. Wanda realizes that Vision is actually not on the neighborhood watch, and is trying to figure it out. And then Hugh asks, Wanda's a series of questions, including, "Is there anything you want changed?" So,
and she answered in her sitcom, "Oh no, I'm good." But that was even a great way of showing condensing all these different Halloween hijinks activities into the fraying of the sitcom thing. And then you see in the background the nabbing of the candy, the spraying of the silly string, the smashing of the pumpkins.
Yeah. There's more in the contrast between episode 1 to today. Episode 1, there's really no fraying that happens at all in the sitcom trope up until Mr. Hart is choking. But here there are multiple breaks that happen. And that brings us to the next sequence, where Vision is on his adventure. He's walking around, and then comes upon this person, and it becomes clearer that as you get further out in Westview, yeah, there's that haunting movement back and forth. The tear that drops on her face as she's going back and forth, and in the background, the guy is moving the Halloween decorations back and forth. And I wondered in the beginning, or not earlier in the series, how invested are these other characters? Are they, sorry, are they all being manipulated by Wanda, or are they pieces of the puzzle? Are they in on it? That contrast between like the Truman Show, that like the Truman Show versus something else like The Sims. Here we're clearly more like The Sims. There are these non-playing characters that are zombie-like and trapped in this horrible, horrible experience.
Exactly, just as you have said. And I'll play the single tear that she's shedding is
Yeah.
again a callback to that comics panel that we don't have an image of right now, but that even an android can cry.
Oh
Is the
yeah.
vision, just the shedding of a single tear was that image from the 60s comics. And now here's the shedding of a single tear in the TV show format. So there's that. And then also, he discovers this as he's walked farther down the road. So he's more at the outer perimeter, the outskirts of town. So later on, when Wanda expands the border of the town, I think it's playing off the elements of control. So maybe she's having less control or less focus on the outskirts of town until she redefines the perimeters of the town to increase her amount of control over things.
It may be the evolution of her powers even during the series, right? What we had talked about early on, where first time you see Wanda, she's just moving the blocks, and then bam. And in Civil War, right? A Civil War where we have the incident in Lagos and the accident that happens, the terrible accident that happens. And then by Endgame, she's able to battle Thanos and could have beaten Thanos potentially if not for the Blitz. And so as Wanda's powers are evolving over the course of the MCU, it may be evolving during the series as well, that she's becoming more powerful, that she doesn't have the ability to manipulate everybody over the thousands of people in Westview. And so people on the edges, people who are not front and center, they're just sort of out there.
I think that's entirely spot on. And again, in terminology and in use of powers, originally in the comics, it was known as her hex power to alter probability. And then time passes and other writers and other creative teams come in and they say, well, how about instead of just altering probability, that's a variation or they do a tweak, and then it's adjusting reality instead of just altering probability. So that was an expansion of the hex power. So in the way that the physical environment of the hex then expands, and in the way that we're seeing her do things that at least we weren't previously aware of. So most that implies that they're a new power set or she's powered up. So then, where do we go from here?
Where do we go? Yeah. I'm remembering I missed a point here, and feel free to stop me anytime as we're continuing on this chat, but this. I love this. And so I used to buy the Kick-Ass comic book when it first came out, the J.R. Mark Miller series. It's a brutal, gritty comic book. It is not for kids. It's not for most adults either. It's a gritty comic book. And it was later adapted, I think in 2010, as a film, and there was a sequel to it, who starred none other than Aaron Taylor Johnson. And I did not remember that Evan Peters has a smaller role in the film. So, yeah.
Very excellent. Well played, connecting the dots, my friend.
My head exploded with this moment, actually, because and actually with the actor Aaron Taylor Johnson, my first memory, my first introduction to him was in was in the film Kick-Ass. And so then when I saw him in Age of Ultron, he bulked up. He's like a big, beefy guy. And he shows up in Godzilla, too. Him and Elizabeth Olsen, actually, as husband and wife, which is a separate story. But yeah, I loved the moment. I really enjoyed the movie. It's not great, but the comic books are better. To be that guy about it. But yeah, I love that. And I dug in a little bit further because in the whole swirl, I was thinking, oh my goodness, could the multiverse bring together like other comic universes? Could we see could you merge the DC universe into this multiverse? Could that even happen? But no, I don't think it's actually that, because in looking at the history, Kick-Ass is actually an Icon Comics property, which is a Marvel Comics property.
Creator owned line, yes.
Right. So, and I know that it's hopped around. Kabuki, I think, was part of Icon at one point, and now I think it's Dark Horse or somewhere else. So I know these things hop around, but when it was first created, yeah, it was under the Icon brand, and accordingly under the Marvel brand. But I loved it. And man, I would just die if I saw Kick-Ass appear somewhere in the show.
I'd be surprised, but it would be a great piece to include.
Give me Kabuki in the MCU. Give me Kick-Ass in the MCU. Just bring it all. Give me all of the comics.
All the things.
All the things.
All the things.
So now we get to the commercials. There's been an evolution of the commercials. We've talked about it before. The Stark toaster, probably early in her childhood. But this is the first one where it does not feel like it's distinctly part of her past. And I think it's actually the present. Thoughts and reactions to the Yo Magic commercial?
Well, let me just laugh at the shark for a second, because both there is the shark on the box and the shark in the background.
Right.
Excellent use of a shark. I was trying to figure, was there any significance to strawberry apart from that it's a red color or a common yogurt flavor? But yeah, new Yo Magic. So we've got magic going on. I think that even as it was an animated cartoon, or I should say animated advertisement, which would be, again, fitting of the time period that this episode is zeroing in on. The magic of the yogurt wasn't enough to save the young kid, so that could be some foreshadowing that the magic that the Wanda character is manipulating might not be enough to save things as she would like.
I think the shark is actually Wanda. It is a manifestation of Wanda. That Wanda is what this commercial symbolizes is Wanda using her magic on this desert island where the kid in this commercial is trapped, and they are wasting away. The sun that moves in the background, you see 8 suns actually go by. I don't know if it means anything, but it's been 9 days since Wanda broke out Vision from Sword headquarters. Could it be that they've been trapped in this world for some number of days, or by the 8th day that everybody's dead?
Nice pull on the number of suns and the number of days since Vision's body was taken from the facility. Nice pull.
Yeah, I think it's expressing what is actually happening to the town of Westview. It was a brilliantly executed commercial. I loved everything about it. It's disturbing as heck. Yeah, I loved it a lot. So with that brings, I know we don't need to see the wasting away kid again. So with that, I think that brings us to this sequence that happens. They're outside of the movie theater. They are chatting. Speed develops his own powers during this whole sequence. They're talking about between Pietro and Wanda, they're talking about what happened. And Pietro says, well, I knew you needed me. He says, this is what you wanted. You wanted the brother with the antics and giving your husband a hard time, all of that. But I knew that you needed me. I heard you, and I died for no good reason in the street. So I guess Hawkeye's wasn't worth saving in the mind of Quicksilver. Um, but yeah. Thoughts and reactions to that interchange.
Yeah, all their pieces of conversation are these still in the setup phase. And were you testing me? Were you, what happened to your accent? What happened to yours?
Mm-hmm.
All these layered counterpoints, because the Wanda character decreased the use of or spoken a more standard, as Elizabeth Olsen would speak, versus the chosen dialectical created Sokovian accent from her first movie appearances. So it's Shangri-La. I meant to go look up what exactly was Shangri-La, but if I had Shangri-La also, I'd just go with it. However Pietro articulated that. It's again, there's the playfulness, there's the morbidity, there's the push and pull, the yin and the yang, if you will. So I can't wait till next week to get more reveal.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's starting to, in this sequence, it feels like Pietro is trying to convince Wanda that you can trust me. I'm your brother, and you needed me. You can, and that sets up for a moment that happens later in this episode. And I think that brings us to now the intersection of Rolling Hill and Ellis. Vision is going on his venture. He's on the outskirts of Westview. He can see that things are even more frayed the further out you go. People are not moving. People seem very, very trapped. No human interaction, but manages to see a car with its lights on, a car at the intersection of Rolling Hill and Ellis, being driven by none other than Agnes.
Well, I'm getting the idea. The implication is that Agnes is not a puppeteer in this universe, within this hex anymore. It appears that Agnes is just as much a puppet or a controlled person as any of the other Westview residents are.
Yeah. That she does have the unusual cackle at the end that is not normal, I think, for anybody. I mean, maybe she is genuinely, as a neighbor, like just that kind of weird, offbeat sense of humor kind of person. But yeah, I don't think that she's the big bad anymore. And she does seem to react to her name as Agnes. So if you remember further back, Agnes is the one character where we don't have a matching driver's license identified. So maybe she is actually just, I don't know.
There's something unique about her, separating her from all those other characters who did have driver's licenses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And before we move on from here, there is this interchange. Let me get rid of the banner so we can see it all. The shouting that happens. She wonders, am I dead? Oh, wait, you're Vision. You're an Avenger. Are you here to save us? And then she wonders, what Vision says, what's an Avenger? I don't remember. And then she starts panicking. Am I dead? And why? Why would you think that? And because you're dead. You're dead. Very chilling.
The repetition of dead, again, a callback to the end of episode 1. Stop it. Now the repetition is dead. Again, there was, as the show portrayed it, it was a different edit into what the trailer was. In the trailer, there was shorter time between saying you're dead and that maniacal cackle, if you will, or that witch's laugh, or that hyper expressed pressured speech articulation expressed through laugh. Mm-hmm. So yeah, again, that and then he touches her head, as he had similarly with Norm, to take the pressure off, or to have her not be full on and experiencing that pain. And right back in the sitcom mode. Really, really well done sequence.
Agnes might be an unwilling villain of some kind here. Perhaps that's why she is somehow different compared to everybody else. That she may be somehow involved in manipulating what is happening and managing and being the handler for Wanda in this Westview world. Maybe there's something there. Maybe she is actually a witch, as has been suggested in the past. But yeah, I don't think she's the big bad anymore.
Agree.
So we get to the our friends Darcy, Agent Wu, and Monica, Captain Rambeau together, and they have managed their way back into Sword headquarters. A few moments earlier, Darcy is able to figure out that the director is able to track Vision. They are talking further about it. Monica, Captain Rambeau, gets a text and says, "My guy is here," and then they're about to head out. But Darcy says, the energy inside has rewritten your cells at a molecular level twice. So talking about the blood work that has been done, Agent Hayward, Director Hayward has your blood work and sees that all is happening. And then Captain Rambeau speaks to, cells metastasize and go into remission. A solemn moment there. What do you think is actually happening in the sequence? Is Captain Rambeau becoming a superhero?
I would say it's definitely this one. Some things there's more guesswork. This one, I think the breadcrumbs are closer together, or it's more likely, more plausible that this is an introduction to her as a character with powers. And she'll take the mantle. Photon, again, after her comic character having been named Captain Marvel, and then later picking up the name Photon. And in the cinematic universe, as was set up by the Maria Rambeau, the mom character, having the flying call sign of Photon. So it's definitely, it's definitely coming that she's going to end up to have extraordinary abilities. And similarly, then, the talk was, what is the correct course of action for that character to do, to go back into the Hex, to not go into the Hex. Mm-hmm. And then she stressed strongly her point. I know what Wanda's feeling, and I'm not going to stop until I can help her. So as Wanda has staked her claim, the director has staked a nemesis claim, and now here comes the Rambeau character throwing her chips onto the table as well. So she's just as serious in her conviction and in her investment. And if I can also bridge this point, who else showed their conviction and their investment in a different way than they had before was Jimmy Woo, because when they were get these goons out of my base, who threw the first punch? Jimmy Woo. And so I was just personally pleased to see that. And again, I'm not critiquing his supporting character appearance in Ant-Man, but there was a lot of comic relief or the butt of the jokes in Ant-Man. So now it was also nice to see a counterbalancing, here comes Jimmy Woo, FBI agent, to throw the first punch in that instance.
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing us back there. Yeah, Agent Woo doesn't play. You're right. He was all in. And then everybody else jumps in, and Darcy is wondering, was there a plan? Why didn't anybody tell me? Yeah. So that gets me. There's been a lot of talk of, gee, it would be great to have an Agent Woo, Agents of S.W.O.R.D. or some kind of show. I would be all in on that.
Maybe coming.
Character. Maybe it is coming. So where are we at in order? Oh.
Going back to order, so then they're saying it wasn't safe for Darcy to stay if the two of them were gone, which was again a setup for what would come later. But then just after that bit, there was a cut back to the Halloween town, or Halloween within Westview, and the conversation between Wanda and Pietro at that time. Oh well, Mom and Dad would have loved it. Oh yeah, I think they would have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's that there's that exchange between the two, and um, uh, it's there's a lot that happens in that sequence where at first it's heartwarming and the two are trying to bond, or at least Quicksilver seems to be trying to bond with his sister. But unlike the breaks that happen with Vision, right? When Vision is in the sitcom world, that is one thing. But when he sees that something is wrong, we get to see the chips. We can see that he's fraying back to the Vision that we know from the series, where there's a different person there, there's a warmer person there. In this case, when Quicksilver is out of the sitcom world and drifting back to somebody else who kind of knows that something is going on, it's not the Quicksilver in either the MCU or the Fox series. It is something else. It is definitely a more sinister type of person. It's not the same character in my take of it.
Right, and again, the setups are setting up. The reveal has yet to be revealed, but even the specific phrasing that, I'm not a stranger, I'm not your husband. Then he doesn't go on to say, I am your brother, but he leaves it at, I'm not a stranger, not your husband. You can tell me. So is this a sincere person who's alternate brother-ish character who's looking to be supportive and let Wanda confide in him? Or is it, again, some ulterior motive? How do you even do all this? You don't think it's wrong. So now they've gone from a more nostalgic memory. Mom and Dad would have liked this, and then it shifts tone again. So quickly, where are you hiding the kids? As was referenced in the previous, so there were no kids around in the town. I assume they were just sleeping in their beds. So again, he has all this knowledge. He knows of events that have transpired either after the Marvel iteration of Quicksilver was dead, or the things that the Fox iteration of Quicksilver wouldn't have knowledge of. So what does this guy know and what doesn't he know? And it's again, wow. And again, I can't wait to see more.
Yeah. And now kids can avert their eyes. We get to our second jump scare, which is,
yeah, boy, oh boy, the earlier jump scare of this episode was did not go to 11 the same way this one does, but that's why, tying to the opening credits, to see the Marvel Cinematic Quicksilver with 3 blood marks into his shirt. So now we have the same, in different spots, but the same number of marks. And so as did the deceased image of Vision present itself in front of Wanda previously, now the deceased image of her brother has presented itself to her.
So with this corpse that is walking around in this universe, I wondered if this was now Marvel Zombies. Actually, I'm not familiar with those comics, but I've thumbed through it. Could we actually be seeing a Marvel Zombies world here? And is that even Pietro? I do not think it's Pietro at all. I think it could be that somebody was brought in that moment that is actually the villain. It could have been that this was all a world that Wanda had for some reason constructed. I don't think that either. But I think it's actually the big bad manifesting themselves in Quicksilver's corpse.
I think now we're building the case for the possibility of the character Nightmare, because we could say, again, referencing Twilight Zone and referencing a different reality, that the being awake is one variation of reality, and then having dreams, if we could use the terminology, a dream reality or reality within the dream. Similarly, here is a nightmare reality manifesting. So it could well be that Uncle Pietro could actually be, if not Mephisto, the character of Nightmare is a definite possibility for who is this really.
Yeah, I wondered if the reason why we don't see the kids earlier and they're carted back here, for the sake of the Halloween special, is that everybody that you don't see is actually in that dreamlike state, having nightmares, and that may be fueling the evil that hangs over the town of Westview. Could that be an element of it? Seems like there's some amount of humanity that Quicksilver acknowledges. Like, okay, so you kept the kids insulated from this terrible, terrible environment. You've kept some of the structures in place and given people some better jobs. So hey, good for you that way. But the moral dilemma is flagged, and Wanda is looking for justification of her actions, and Quicksilver is fine with it.
And when she pitches the specific question to him, you don't think it's wrong, and he says, "I'm impressed." So again, maybe that's just a supportive sibling, or maybe that's a full-on villain who would be impressed and wouldn't have a problem with subverting the free will of an entire suburban village or municipality.
Yeah, I think as Pietro or whoever this villain is, trying to get information out of Wanda, trying to learn how do you do this, so that they can do it. That brings us to the hero breaking out, and Vision boldly goes past the barrier, breaks through. He is struggling, he is dying, and Darcy comes darting out. Oh, I'm missing something. I am missing something. Before we do that, Darcy hacks into the mainframe further, gets through to the last firewall, and we see Cataract on the screen. She cracks into Director Hayward's last firewall and sees Cataract. So kind of a funny Vision Cataract tie bit there. And she emails whatever she finds to the FBI. So you see she types out an email and she sends out the information. So I think the cavalry is coming. I think the FBI is going to step in. They know whatever Cataract is. I wonder if, because Agent Wu speaks about in the previous episode how Vision never wanted to be somebody else's weapon, that maybe actually the director was turning Vision into a weapon. When you see that sequence in the previous episode where Wanda is breaking into Sword headquarters, there are people in hazmat suits with pieces of Vision's corpse there. It's not like it's a coffin of some kind or an archive. There are people around tables looking at the pieces of Vision. So I think that actually this Cataract was to turn Vision into a weapon. I don't know for what purpose, but I think he was meant to be a weapon, and perhaps Director Hayward is the big bad.
That would definitely take us away from benevolent caretakers of Vision's corpse into full-on Dr. Frankenstein territory. And yeah, I don't know this guy's background. We know he's disagreeable. Mm-hmm. We know he's all in. We know he's a nemesis to Wanda, but he could be his own character with self-agency, or he could be, be it a Mephisto or a Nightmare big bad influencer. Mm-hmm. He could be the pawn of a greater evil character. So that's kind of good.
It could be that he just didn't want the secret to come out that they were working on Vision and turning him into a weapon. It could be just an espionage thing, or just not wanting that secret to leak out. It could be that, because for some reason, while Vision is struggling, Vision is struggling on the edge of Westview, Director Hayward doesn't do anything. He's just sort of standing around. Everybody's standing around. It's only Darcy that's running out saying, you have to help him. Vision is not looking for help for himself. He is saying the people need help. Yeah. So Vision is the hero all the way through to the end, though. This is obviously not the end. All right. So I jumped this around a little bit. So now let's. So this is all transpiring. The Wiccan is able to sense that something is wrong, that Dad is in trouble, Dad is dying, and he now develops his own powers, and so now both of the twins have powers by the end of this episode, and Wanda is tapping into that, asking him, where's your dad? Where is he? And she figures it out. Quicksilver is a total jackass. There are moments of total brutality on another person. Hayward attacking Rambo's memory of her mom, or that you weren't there. Thank goodness you weren't there when your mom died. And this one, Quicksilver attacking Wanda. Your dead husband can't die twice. Jeez.
As the comics iteration of Quicksilver had historically been, at the very least, impatient with other characters. If you're a super speedster and everybody else is operating with what seems to you at a molasses pace, then we can figure that character could possibly, as Quicksilver, be impatient, cold, indifferent, less than polite, and sometimes, but that wasn't like playful banter. That was just full on
mean-spirited,
not empathetic, an absence of consideration and comfort. And so, hey, then take a zap over the hay bale into the gazebo then.
Yeah. So if it is a villain, if Quicksilver is a villain, he's not dead in that blast. You see him recovering in the hay bale. Really a brutal exchange that happens, and then that gets us to the conclusion of the episode, which is Wanda unleashed. The town gets bigger. Now we know that the perimeter is being controlled by Wanda. It's not somebody else. She is able to expand that perimeter beyond its borders, and does exactly that to help save the dying Vision. He is restored once the barrier goes out. Darcy goes through the barrier, as does everybody else within that wake. The only people who escape are Hayward and two other people in that car. I think there's two other people in that car, and of course Agent Wu and Captain Rambo had already been on their way outside of the town to meet up with whomever is that astrophysicist that is going to save the day. And that sequence brings everybody into this, like, it's either a circus or some things turn into a used car lot with older cars. And at a point, Wanda stops. The eyes turn from red to normal. Thoughts on this sequence?
Definitely. So the very first, as the border of the hex expanded, Vision was the first individual to be brought back in to the inside of the hex. Mm-hmm. And then poor Darcy there, she can't go run if she wants to. And then again, as they play with the seriousness and the sitcom-ness, I believe she says fudge. Oh, I don't know.
Well, fudge, yes.
Fudge, but I believe that she said fudge, which is a very sitcom way of phrasing that now she's in a dilemma, she's in a pickle, she's in a bad way.
Right.
Be very curious to see how her character expresses herself next week in this new expanded hex. And yeah, so there were lights that, again, there's a transformation in the things, but they're like somewhat based on what they were. So these light posts were changed into baseball field looking pennants, and the tent, or the military tent, converted to a circus tent, and definitely the car lot to a old timey, used car lot. The Westview sign converted it itself. So yeah, again, I can't wait to see these things manifest in next week. And this, we're 6 episodes into it, doesn't occur to me until now, but as it's looking at the sign, so West View, WV, WandaVision, this was the first week it occurred to me that the name of the town has the letter similarities to Wanda and Vision.
It's all brilliant how it all fits together, right? You have the two characters, Wanda, Vision, and mashing it together. Here we are watching television sitcoms. The West View is Wanda and Vision, and yeah, it's all brilliantly done. Nothing, yeah, it's what the MCU does best, where very little is left to chance. Things are thought through and seeded and brought together. It's all brilliant. So let me ask you: do you? And I think that brings us to the end of the episode. So I had I think a couple of questions. One of them we covered already, which is, who is Pietro really? But the other one that I have leading into the ending this episode is, if we know that Monica Rambeau's DNA is being transformed, that something is changing in her blood work, is this how we get mutants? And also, with every expansion, everybody who has gone through that barrier, are they becoming mutants? And is this how we get the X-Men? Or, for that matter, just mutants in the MCU world?
These are the good questions. So I'm just going to go with not mutants, not yet. And well, time will tell. I might be wrong. But if the setup for this, and it could be set up for again, multiple future projects, but if the WandaVision series is to set up a lot of what's going to go on in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, then I'm going to say, just timeline wise, I would expect that the specific setup for mutants to be transferred from the Fox studio into the new expanded MCU. I'll say that it's going to come later down the road, possibly in the Doctor Strange movie. It could be the flip or the reverse of what she did in comics, to say no more mutants, which significantly reduced the number of mutants in the comics stories. It could well be that that's going to come within episode 9, but I'll just go with timeline wise. I think we'll see that happen later. So we're long of the short of it, we're not going to see mutants activated quite yet.
I think we are actually going to see mutants by the end of this thing. That it's going to be the flip, rather than no more mutants. It's more mutants that end up in this world. I think that's where we'll end up. Those are my notes for this episode. What else did you have? Things that we missed?
Just a couple of minor points to jump back into. The town hall, village hall with the gazebo. Oh, yeah. I know that gazebo has been used, and I'm trying to jog my memory to thinking what other thing, but that definitely that set has appeared in quite a bunch of movies and TV shows. Mm-hmm. And so also within that set, then at the movie marquee, the 2 movies that were billed at the movie house were The Incredibles and The Parent Trap. So I think that's just referential of The Incredibles is a superhero family. So now that the twins are alive, and now that they have both had powers manifest, hence The Incredibles on the marquee, and then The Parent Trap. Vision is one of their parents, and he is, well, I see Wanda's in her own kind of trap also, I suppose. But to have those 2 films as a double feature is definitely an indicator of the being trapped within the hex.
Yeah. It's getting really bright outside, so I'm noticing that I'm getting
I
like
was just noticing that.
I'm getting like either a silhouette where I can barely see myself or what, and then I'm blasting this ring light in my face. I'm going to give myself a cataract by the end of this episode. Um, yeah, no, I I really I really enjoyed this episode. I think it keeps on getting better and better. I think the more views, the more engagement that this show is getting, the WandaVision series is getting, is indicative of just the quality of the writing and just how it's getting that much more enthralling. And definitely will, you can see that this is going to more clearly tie us back to the MCU very, very soon. We're in the MCU right now, but it's going to tie into the future movies. And there is that mid-season featurette. I don't know if you saw it. That has a little bit, not that much more information, but a little bit more glimpses of what we'll see in the remaining episodes. Wanda and Vision teaming up, I guess, to save their town. And there's the truck or the car from whoever's driving it, the astrophysicist. So uh, we know that kind of stuff is coming, but I'm excited to see it. I'm looking forward to it.
As am I.
All right. Well, with that, I know this was a long one. So thanks everybody for watching. And if you're watching later, post in the comments your thoughts and reactions to WandaVision episode 6, an all new Halloween Spooktacular. Did you like it? Did you love it? What do you think is going on? Who is the big bad? Is it Mephisto? Is it Nightmare? Is it Director Hayward? Let us know in the comments. As always, thanks for watching. Please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. This has been the Fanboy Cantina.